Hello everyone. So I got a request for showing how to sync by this guy MCXR. Uh, so I'm gonna just go through just my own mental process and how I sync my own charts and things and whatnot. How I sync for other people. Um, so it can be a really convoluted process, and there are a lot of ways to do it. There's not one way. You can use DDR Dream. I try not to use it because it triggers my personal OCD, and I just don't want to deal with it. Um, just to be honest. Um, but I'll show an easier method that assumes that one, your song doesn't have any bad cuts. Two, your artist made the song or track um, in such a way that it wasn't uh, live instruments, or um, it wasn't mashed up in introducing human error, because humans aren't going to be precise. So you can't sync anything that the person has made, like a concert piece or rock music or rock music. Some rock music. Some rock music is actually made with all MIDI and anyway. So this is a drum and bass chart. Um, First off, the BPM that I was given was 180.1, which already is pretty suspect for something that is uh, a drum and bass chart or drum and bass track that is fairly recent. A lot of the times drum and bass has very flat BPMs, so I'm already kind of suspect of that. So I'm just going to quickly convert the file into an MP3 just because that's the program that I use for BPM uh, estimation is or only works with MP3 files. So I'm going to take the file and quickly convert it to MP3. I'm going to come down here. So I use Mixmeister BPM Analyzer, which a lot of people are going to frown on, but it gets the job done for estimation purposes. Okay, so this is throwing out a silly BPM. Now, if we round off to 90 and normalize the BPM, it says 180. So 90 times 2 is 180. So it was pretty close. A lot of the times I don't listen to the minuscule differences or the small decimal point BPMs. I usually round off to the nearest and then move from there. I've never honestly actually used a program that tells me an exact BPM and it was correct. So you always have to kind of find your own BPM for yourself. So I'm going to delete the MP3 file because it's useless now. Alright, so I'm going to open up Goldwave. I personally like that more than Audacity. Audacity is this. I don't really like it. I prefer Goldwave. It's just a semantic type thing, whether you like either one. I personally like Goldwave more. So I'm going to open up the file. Now, Alright, I'm looking at the beginning of this. This doesn't really have any good solid beats that I would like to see. I mean, I'm already seeing like this waveform. This should cut sharply here. Should be almost in that. See how it goes, kind of, it amps up slowly over a course of, let's see, 47 milliseconds, so that's a lot. So this track is going to be kind of a pain in the ass. I already know it. Alright, so see how I just picked a random interval. I've actually never seen this song, so I'm doing this completely by request. So see how this interval here is really sharp. So okay, so this is kind of nice. So I'm gonna take this and just double check where we are sync wise. Now I'm trusting right now the offset and the BPM. I know that I'm pretty sure, I'm almost 90% sure that they're wrong, but I'm gonna give the author the benefit of the doubt. Well, let me turn down. I'm gonna turn down Stepmania. All right. So this interval here shows where the sound starts. No, I don't really like that interval. I'm going to try and look for something a little bit more solid. Alright, since I haven't illustrated what I'm talking about, I'll show you a good example of a chart that is good to sync, or easy to sync. So, where are you? Alright, so I synced this chart for someone. Now, you can see here how the beats are very defined, very sharply defined. That's really what I'm looking for when I sync something. See how you can see how very different the waveform is here, and then it sharply spikes. That is the kind of waveform that I look for when I chart, or when I'm looking for a song to chart. So again, here's another good example, another good interval. And this is a muddy one, as you can see. Okay, so it doesn't look like I'm going to get that with this. It's not too bad, but it's just not what I don't know. Anyway, so where did the arrows start? I'm going to give up on the interval I chose. I don't really like it. So it looks like you're starting around here. So I'm going to ignore all of this. This is all muddy and really gross to sync, so I'm not going to even bother with that. So I'm going to look for the first sharply defined peak in the song. There's got to be one here somewhere. Okay, we're already pretty far in. Alright, so I guess I'm going to settle for right here. So one thing I look for when I'm stepping charts, I really try to avoid songs where they have this gradual ramp up in the waveform. It's ambiguous, and I don't know. You can see here there's a 47 millisecond delay between the start and the maximum uh, amplitude of the waveform. So I'm going to keep that in mind for when I'm looking at other intervals throughout the song to double check. Um, so let's start here. So let's go and do the offset first. So we're going to do a null offset. Now, right here, we have, with the null offset, we're going to want this chart to start at 11.858. So already I can see we are off. Maybe this is because you personally synced to the peak of the waveform, which is fine. I'm going to go with the beginning of the spike in the waveform, which is the 46 milliseconds out. So let's do that. So 11.858. Now this is Stepmania 5, so there's extra precision that Stepmania 3.95 and OpenITG and R21 does not have. So I'm just going to ignore the extra precision for the purposes of this video. So first of all, let's normalize the BPM. I'm going to go straight into 180 flat because I'm almost confident that it is not going to be a non-integer value. Now it's like I said, we can always change that later. That's not really a big deal. So, oops. So I'm going to readjust this. Now 858. 8. Okay. So we have our first beat marked, which is good. Now I'm going to arbitrarily go out about 20 seconds into the song just to see where we're at sync-wise. Now going out this far will it'll show us whether or not our BPM is correct. Now, assuming that our offset is correct, we should be able to pick some random point, and any random point in the song, and our sync points and the beginning of the sounds should all match here and here. Now looking at this, I'm having a hard time finding a good point. Alright, I'm going to actually listen in and try to listen to the song. I'm going to listen for any sharp drum sounds or any bass sounds. Oh, actually, just looking around, I found one. Let's go with this. So I'm going to listen in on this, and I'm gonna listen to what kind of sound it is, because just looking at the waveform, it doesn't mean that this is a percussion instrument or something along those lines. If this waveform were actually a vocal sample or a vocal interval, then that would be that'd be a bad place to start checking my sync, or the sync of the track, because you never ever want to sync to vocals, because they are imperfect. Humans don't sing or vocalize like machines. We're not perfect, but machines are, so we'll sync to those. Now, I don't like that sound. I guess it'll work. It's a very sharp bass sound, but okay, we'll go with that. So again, now this is where ambiguity will come into play, because there is no 47 millisecond lead-in to this sound. So I'm gonna just go straight from the peak amplitude and see where we're at. Alright, so right here, the point I picked, it's at 21 seconds. So 21.892. Okay, so alright, so this is the value for the correct sync point, but what we're getting is 21.858. So we have a discrepancy of 34 milliseconds, which is actually a huge discrepancy. And it doesn't match our ambiguity that we had at the beginning. So automatically I'm going to go back and look for another place to anchor the song with the offset. I automatically am going to not trust using this interval, this rough interval, as our offset. Now I'm going to listen in to the very beginning to try to find, or to try to hear any kind of bass hit or strong instrument that I can sync to. I can feel the love, can you feel it too? I can feel it, I can feel it, no, I said it's true. I can feel the love, can you feel it too? I can feel it, the love, can you? Alright, so there's a strong bass hit in here somewhere. I believe that is it right there. So this is a vocal waveform. You can see how it organically starts out and maxes out. Now, this is where we have a an instrument, I'm presuming a MIDI instrument or some other kind of electronic sound. Okay, so again, let's see. Okay, so the difference between the beginning of the sound and the maximum is only 2 milliseconds, so I'm gonna go with the beginning of it. Okay, so 14, now we need 14.538.
I can feel the love in.
Okay, so we matched our sound here, so 14.538 with our Stepmania at 14.538. Okay, so now I'm going to go back to my semi-random interval 20 seconds in. Or I'm going to listen in and try to hear. I'm going to try to listen for a similar bass hit that we used.
You know I said it's true, I can feel it. You know I said it's true, I can feel it.
There's one in here somewhere.
You know, you know.
Oh, okay, that's not it. Okay, so this is really muddy. I'm not comfortable using that interval. As you can see where this is a vocal here, where he's saying the word and, but they're muddying that up by putting the MIDI instrument or the bass hit on top of or kind of stacked poorly when they engineered the song. So I'm not going to use this interval. I'm going to listen in for another interval where maybe the singer is taking a breath or not singing and sync to that bass hit.
You know I said it's true, I can feel the love, can you feel it too? I can feel it all. I can feel it all. You know I said it's true, I can feel the love. I can feel the love, can you feel it too? I can feel it all. I can feel it all.
Okay, so here's a good example of that. Okay, so here's a good bass hit. It's actually really strong. Now you can see where the vocal starts or is. This is a pretty good vocal signature. Now you can see where it's pretty symmetrical. And this might actually be, yeah, it's a synth instrument, actually. Now, this is where our bass hit comes in. No, okay. So the peak is here at the end of our value. So we're going to look to see how close our chart is to 54.522. Okay. Okay, so it's not close. So 54.522 minus what we have in, oops, my bad, 54.522. Now I want to find the difference, and I'll show why this is important in a bit. So this is the actual location of the beat, and this is where Stepmania is at right now. So the difference between these two is 16 milliseconds, which isn't such a big deal if you're gonna play this on an ITG Dedicab, which usually has a um, offset of, I believe, 12 or 11. It's still off. It's not perfect. So what I'm gonna do is make a personal note, and you can see where I was actually doing this before. I'm going to make a personal note of where we are in the song. So this is current beat 164, and the correct value, I'm going to keep track of only the correct values. So 54.522, and we were 16 milliseconds off. And we're going to look at it again. 15.522, and we were over, so I'm going to say we were a positive 16 millisecond difference. Now let's check somewhere farther in the song, and by doing that, we're going to try to make intervals every 10 or 15 seconds and see where the sync is at. If we are constantly off by this 0.61 or 16 milliseconds, then we'll actually go ahead and bump the offset, and we'll keep the BPM as it is. But if this discrepancy goes up as a trend or down as a trend, that will that'll indicate that our BPM is wrong, and I was wrong by saying that we had a whole number BPM. So let's find another interval. Now so we're here right now, so let's go out about 20 seconds. Now I'm going to listen again for bass hits. Okay, so I don't hear any. There probably aren't any because this is drum and bass. This is the drop, if that's what you want to call it. Let's listen more. Yeah, okay. So because this is the drop portion of the drum and bass song, I'm probably not going to get what I'm looking for. So let's go with a really strong instrumental peak. Now this is a good one right here. Now you can see how this previous waveform is tapering off into where the next instrument hits or comes in, or next hit of an instrument, or whatever you want to call it, the next note comes in. So you'll see how it kind of changes, and then not out of nowhere, but it dramatically spikes, and you can actually hear it if you preview. No, that's a small interval. So now, if you want to test that, see whether or not you're correct and the sound doesn't actually start here, you can change up the interval and listen in. Now, just listening into that small tidbit, I already know that that is not including our instrumental hit. So there's an instrumental hit somewhere up here, and then this is some vocal sustain. Now we're going to go back here. Now, I don't want to do that. So we're going to find this point right here. So we're going to look for 70.025. Okay, so here we're 200 milliseconds off, and here we're 100 and 100 and something milliseconds off, 130 milliseconds off. So that leads me to believe that either one, our BPM is really wrong, like very off wrong, or this song is not steppable because of the drift. Now, this can happen for a few reasons. One being that the producer of the song did not take the time to really line up the grids to the song. Now, I'm going to give the benefit of the doubt to this and say that maybe your audio track is bad and it was post-processed somehow where it's not usable. But it could also mean that the actual song itself is drifty, which kind of sucks for when you really want to step something. Now, I'm going to try and get a better music file for this, so I'm going to pause this and find one.